Hello, my name is Dean Contover, and welcome to The Current Buzz. Today we have attorney Maria Santos. She's an immigration attorney. This is the second time she's been on. We're happy to have her on. And I love immigration because I travel a lot. So we're going to talk about immigration. We're going to really nail it down, or try to nail it down. So she's going to explain how immigration, when you come here with a visa, what a visa is, and then she's going to talk about getting your naturalization once you get a visa into this country, and then we're going to talk about the American passport that's loved throughout the world. And once you have one of these, it's like opens a Pandora's box.
That's
right?
correct.
Right? People don't know. And by the way, look at your passport, see if it's expired, because of the COVID, you might have forgotten to and put it away in the safe or wherever you put it. Yeah. Look at the date, because it's taken a long time to get to get your passport now. Mm-hmm. So, all right. So, welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me back, Dean.
So last time you told me citizenship was $725 to apply.
Right.
We think it might have changed.
No, the filing fees did not change.
Okay.
But I'm going to just tell everybody who's watching us, I stink at remembering filing fees. They're all online.
Okay.
The website that anyone has to know if you're going to be applying for any benefit with immigration is uscis.gov. That is actually a pretty good website. It has a tremendous amount of information. The problem is connecting all the dots within the information in a very complex system, which it is, okay? Mm-hmm. So, for example...
it's a bureaucracy. Be realistic.
Yes. So you want to apply for naturalization. You go to that site and you search for form number N400. That is the naturalization form that's used.
Right.
It is... with 20-something pages.
It's 20 pages. I printed it out.
It's a very long form.
It's called the Form N400, new edition, 9/17/2000.
Yes, and editions do change, but they're going to have the most current one on that site.
You would suggest that they download it, fill it out before they apply. Don't do it online because you have a copy of what you filled out, because it'll take a couple of hours to fill it out.
Absolutely. And what you really should do is, in my opinion, I print it, I fill it out for the client, with the client, and then I have it reviewed a second time. And then when I'm submitting it in its final form, I keep copies of every single thing I submit to USCIS. I do not like submissions online. The system has not been fully really vetted.
Okay.
And so when you submit something online, you then have to submit documents that need to be connected to it. And sometimes they haven't been connected to it and so on. So I still do not use, when I can avoid it, I avoid it for the online system. And I do it by mail filings. Always use Federal Express and the courier addresses, and keep copies of everything. You need proof that it got delivered. That is really important, okay?
Right.
It's
sort of like certified mail, right?
Yeah.
More or less, okay.
The other little trick, and certified mail does not work as well. Use Federal Express.
Okay.
I always...
Next day service.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate you're paying that company.
Yeah.
But it is the best for USCIS, in my opinion. The other thing is that you use a check. Use your own check. And here's why. You can track that check. When it's cashed, USCIS will have stamped the back with the actual processing case number on the back of your check. So that's another way to track what's going on.
But a lot of people don't have checking anymore, you know?
If you have a checking account, use one of your personal checks.
Okay.
Money orders are much more difficult to track. Bank checks, you can ask the bank to track it for you.
Okay.
But it is the best way to do it. And I recommend that to all my clients when we're filing anything for them.
I see.
And it becomes extremely important to know when something was filed, because right now you have got processing going on by contractors at the intake centers for USCIS.
Oh,
Untrained contractors who are
minimum
not.
wage?
It's an issue getting good people trained to be taking these things in properly. And the other problem is that there's a backlog that is horrendous. So the date that your application, your N400 got there is a very important thing. It was taken in for processing at that time.
Do you have to send a copy of your permanent?
Yes. So included with the N400, fully completed, correctly signed, the filing fee.
And you have
needs
to be honest too in the N400.
Absolutely. And I'm going to tell them the issues that they need to look for. And if those issues exist, you definitely should seek counsel, okay, before you file. First of all, you're going to be including the filing fee check. You're going to be including the copy, both sides of your green card, your permanent residency cards, clear, good copy. I always include 2 passport-style photos, but they're saying now those are not required. Read carefully the instructions. I always include
I think
them.
of passport photos now, they just want one. They just scan one picture.
Because they do biometrics, and they get your facial in the process. And then you want to make certain that you've included in there any name change documentation. So look at the name on the green card. If it's different from what you use now, you got married, you got divorced, something happened in between, you need to include proof of how that all happened for you on a name change, okay? So that's crucial.
Yeah,
Line all that up, make copies of everything when you submit it. Now, issues to look for. If anything happened to you and you have been fingerprinted for other reasons, that means you got stopped, you got arrested, you went into a court, you saw a judge, you've seen a police officer, whatever.
Got picked up for prostitution?
Any criminal type of thing, you need to definitely consider that before you submit this form. 2, if you are a male and you did not register properly for the Selective Service, you need to know those rules and to follow them, and you may need to connect with somebody. But look at the Selective Service website and understand those rules before you check off the box whether or not you properly did things, okay? And also depends on the age of the male and so on. So that's another potential
Well,
issue.
if they didn't, there's a problem, there's an issue. You may not be able to become a citizen.
That's correct. That is very important. Now, the other thing
I even know that.
is continuous physical presence. So, in order to become a citizen of the United States, first, you have to be a green card holder, which is considered permanent resident.
Right.
You resided here permanently. If you are following the 5-year rule for having continuously for having been in the United States as a permanent resident, 2.5 years before you submit this N400 application, you must have been continuously physically present in the United States.
So if you were in Afghanistan and living in Santos and you come back to the United States, if you have a permanent resident card, it starts from that day that you came back.
Afghanistan is a bad example because because of this. If you were a service person and you were in the military, there are exceptions. You'd have to follow those exceptions. But let's say that I'm born in Portugal, so I'll say that, my mother wanted to naturalize and she decided to spend the last year right before she's filing this thing, this N400, in Portugal. She's got a problem because she's broken the continuous physical presence rules.
A lot of people don't know that.
That's correct. Right. So some of us come from these incredible countries with wonderful weather in the winter and so on, and we decide, I'm retired, I'm just going to go back and spend this time. You have to think about those rules before applying for the naturalization. So continuous physical presence.
So if you go away for 2 weeks, let's say to Portugal or to Europe, That's broken.
Nope, that doesn't break it.
Oh, that
so what
doesn't
breaks it is usually if you are there 6 months or more.
I see, okay.
And you've interrupted the physical presence, and you need to recapture those 6 months or more. So you need to really look at those rules, and that's something to consult somebody on if that's one of your questions. Okay. So criminal things, a selective service. Maybe name change things. Sometimes people call me about that too. The other big thing is the continuous physical presence. And then there are many other things. Like, for example, if you're going to apply for naturalization, but you did it based on marriage to a U.S. citizen, you need to have that permanent green card, that permanent card for 3 years and have continuous physical presence for 1.5 years before. But you need to also be married to the person that got you the green card, that sponsored
and
you.
mutual bank accounts, etc., things like that. Right.
That's a well, yeah, you might be asked about, but you will be asked whether you're still married, you're domiciled with that person, and so on. I think you're thinking about removing the condition on the green card. Which is a little bit different. And that is causing issues right now for naturalization.
Are we talking about condition where somebody says their abuse in regards to their marriage, and then they use that to
Okay, so when a person comes in, so now let's go back one step.
Which is obscene.
Let's go back one step, how you got here.
Yes.
How you got that permanent resident card, all right? So to get to this stage of applying for naturalization, it took years. All right, it's taken time. Now, so let's say the way you came into the United States is you married a U.S. citizen.
Right.
And you're from one of the European countries. I will just use that.
Okay.
Okay? You've decided this is your life. You have a good marriage, and you want to naturalize in the United States and become a citizen of the United States. All right? And in fact, you're thinking, you know, my parents want to come to the United States, so I want to become a citizen so I can apply for my parents. Okay, that's one of the benefits of being a citizen. You can apply for immediate relatives, and your parents are your immediate relatives. Okay, so you married, you went to an interview at USCIS, you applied using several other forms, an I-130, an I-485, all kinds of stuff. You got to that interview, you've got your card. It's conditional because your marriage has not been for longer than 2 years. So you got a conditional card. At the end of those 2 years, 90 days before, you can start a process called removing the condition. And it's the form I-751. You submit that to USCIS with a bunch of documentation showing that you've got a good faith marriage, which is what you're thinking of, the good faith marriage standard. And now it's taking well over 2 years to process that form.
Wow.
And if you came in through a consulate, it used to be that you had to go to an interview. Now it's going to be discretionary whether they're going to ask you to come to an interview because it's so backlogged. In addition to that, it's causing problems because people weren't able to renew their licenses, do whatever they need to in the United States. So they extend it out by giving you a receipt that says your conditional card is extended for 24 months, okay, while we process your form. But you're supposed to be able to apply for naturalization within 3 years of having married a U.S. citizen and you have a green card. Well, you've had the conditional card counts towards this. So you've had it for at least 3 years. Are you going to just file the Form N-400? That's something to consult with someone before you do it. So if you don't have that permanent card yet, and you're going to be filing this form before you get that permanent card, do talk to someone, okay, who knows the rules really well and can review your condition, your whole personal situation with you.
So while this person is married, she could work, or he can work in the United States and get a Social Security card because they have an umbrella of their permanent residence, right?
If you marry a U.S. citizen, absolutely. You actually get a conditional green card.
Okay, got it.
So a conditional green card is like a regular green card, except it has that condition on it. As soon as they get that green card, they get a Social Security number. They either go apply to Social Security, or USCIS now has a relationship with Social Security where they ask for the card to be issued.
Right.
Doesn't always work, but there it is. But yes, they have all that.
What I wanted to ask you, there's a situation on the border of Mexico and the United
Title
States.
42, Dean.
Title 40, yeah, I know, I have it written down. Title 42, explain real quick what Title 42 is, and then they're talking about 18,000 people coming in a day. That's $6 million, 6 million people a year. We don't have homes. We're short housing 6 million homes in this country, and these people are at our border and they want to come in, and they're saying at the border, Biden, you promised us that. I don't think we promised them anything, did we? I mean, and the question I have is this: asylum laws. Do you think asylum laws should be changed?
Oh, I think the whole immigration system needs an overhaul. Not just asylum, but the entire system. But the asylum for sure. And here's what Title 42 is not actually an asylum law. It's a law that's in the books that says, look, when you've got a health type of emergency declared, then the Office of the President has the right, the ability to
protect the borders,
institute an emergency type of situation and not allow people to come in through a border. It happened at several of our borders for other reasons, including Canada. But it also, at the Mexican border, it was instituted so that people were not coming into the United States to seek asylum where they did before. Now, at Title 42, the CDC said that it's not really required anymore to have this emergency declaration. So the Biden administration did attempt to not use it anymore, and a court rendered a federal court rendered. It has to be federal. That's a very important point. Immigration is a federal law. A federal court said, no, you didn't do it properly. So Title 42 is back in place. It's there, and people are still not coming in to seek asylum. Now, meanwhile, we had the Ukrainian crisis happen. So Ukrainians were flying in.
I see no one's going into Russia that wants to live in Russia. They're fighting
not
to
only in
prevent
the United States, but everywhere
Russian.
else in Europe. People are trying to come in and be refugees, essentially, for some time. A lot of Ukrainians don't want to stay permanently. They want to return. But so what happened with that was they were flying into Mexico. It's different reasons for being there, and it's a different population in the sense that Ukrainians have some money, they have some savings and so on. They need a temporary place to be, and they have many relatives already in the United States. But like the relatives who contacted me, all of them wanted to get them in as visitors or be here for a while just to get through this crisis. They couldn't get them in because you can't go to a consulate. There's no way to get a visa. The appointments are out to 2023, 2024. And a lot of our consulates abroad, there's no way to bring them in. So they flew into Mexico, and an exception was made. And about 100 a day were crossing over to enter and seek that asylum.
Under refugees, not asylum or refugees?
Well, they were coming in some seeking asylum and some coming in under humanitarian parole.
Okay, humanitarian. That's another one.
All right. So now what changed was realizing that was adding to that crisis as well. The United States government came up with a different program, Uniting for Ukraine. And if you have anybody from the Ukraine who you want to temporarily come and join you in the United States, go to the same website, uscis.gov, and that whole program is explained there, Uniting for Ukraine. But essentially what it requires is that you have somebody in the United States who is going to be your financial sponsor.
Ooh.
All right?
Yeah.
So which is the issue you're bringing up, okay?
Yeah.
Which is these folks are entering through the border, but they just become a part of society here in the United States without any kind of assistance, really.
Are they allowed to work?
Okay, so when they come in under Uniting for Ukraine, it is a humanitarian parole type of entry.
Right. So
That's for 2 years. They're going to come in, the Customs and Border Patrol, out of airports, really, not through the border anymore. Not allowed to do it through the border anymore.
Oh.
All right, so now we're coming in
Well, there's
through
there was
airports.
a lot of tension with that at the border because people were visually seeing the Ukrainians getting in, and they were still
Yeah.
in Mexico.
Yes, so now that's the way it's happening, and there is a sponsor for each one. The sponsor has to meet certain guidelines and so on. It's all spelled out there. The form that's used is the I-134, which is a different kind of affidavit of support. And the sponsor has to provide all kinds of documentation, such as their W-2s, their tax returns, a letter of employment, all of these things. Okay, and it's per individual. All right, now talk about another group that had the same kind of, the folks from Afghanistan. So we've had several crises right in a row here.
Right.
And Afghanistan is a much more different, it's a very different situation. We have got, I think the last estimate I read was over 80,000 folks from Afghanistan in the United States who may have come in through a humanitarian parole situation, flown in, when they were being evacuated from Afghanistan,
Right.
or, and families were separated. And we have a very large group of veterans who served in the Afghanistan war,
Right.
who are trying to help these families reunite because they were separated when they were being evacuated.
Ooh.
Yeah, and the only solution for them under our current law is seeking asylum, basically, because it's a 2-year status, just like any, it's a humanitarian parole status. So asylum is going to be more and more backed up. It already is backlogged. It's going to become even more backlogged.
But we don't have homes to,
Yep.
apartments. I mean, from what I understand, the Afghani community, it's very difficult to find apartments for them in Lowell and places like
Not
that.
just even Lowell, all over. It is just.
I mean, a lot of these refugees are homeless in the Southwest. They don't have homes. We don't have homes. I mean, I have two minutes. I have 2 minutes.
You are talking here about policy and the need for policy changes.
Yep.
And the best way to give any input on that is definitely contact your congressional representative. It made a huge difference in the Ukrainian situation. And that's how this program was designed, was after a lot of input. And it makes a huge difference. Do it. Do give your input to your congressional representatives, to your senators in Massachusetts.
Right.
Let them know.
Maria Santos is an immigration attorney. She's located in Westford.
I work in Westford, Alphen and Santos.
Yeah, and you know, if you need to contact her for any questions, she's in the phone book.
Thank you.
There's an app, and so we were talking about naturalization, and then we get to this passport, and we talked about Title 42, and this is a document, the book, A Guide to Select U.S. Travel Identity Documents. You can go online and look at this book. It has all the documents that are needed, and you'd be surprised. One of the documents is a border crosser card.
You can have
in
one.
Mexico, and you can have one if you're Mexican and you don't go beyond the 25-mile border. It's fascinating. Download the N400 or look at it if you're interested, and
In getting that certificate,
in getting that certificate.
the naturalization.
Naturalization, very important. Thank you for being on the show.